Welcome to Venus in Gemini. I am here with Farah Delicia, who is a psychotherapist, a yoga teacher, and all around incredible person, and one of my best friends. And honestly, such a huge blessing in my life, and an incredible mother, and in a beautiful relationship that expands and I aspire to, and just an all around expander in every way, who I am so excited to chat with. Farah, welcome.
That is so sweet. I love that. Thank you. I don't usually get a such an introduction, but I'm really happy to be here with you, Sky. And I'm so glad you're doing this too. This is going to be really great for to be out in the world. It brings together so many different parts of you, as I'm hearing just in your introduction.
Farah. So, to get us started, this podcast is called Venus in Gemini. And even though it's not about astrology, we kind of love astrology. So, what is your sun sign? And if you know, maybe your rising and moon, and how do you relate to that?
Yeah. So it's funny. I've dabbled in so much astrology throughout my life, like for the last 20 years, starting in my 20s. And you would think I would have a little bit more literacy talking about like my sun and moon and ascendant and all these things. I feel like you know it probably better than I do. You're like definitely the professional in the space, but I am a Capricorn. I was born at the end of December, just 2 days after Christmas. And if I remember correctly, I think my son is in Capricorn. And this has made me all the more when I've gotten professional readings done. It's all the more been very apparent that I am a like tried and true Capricorn. So a little bit of like perfectionist, a little bit of kind of like type A. I know what I want. I'm just kind of, like really decisive and clear. Kind of what's the phrase? I have my own compass and there's like a moral compass to that. And I'm very clear about who my friends are and who I want to associate with and um who's really important to me, but it takes me a while to figure that out. Is that how I want to say it? I don't know. Like I have to be really it takes me a while to like warm up to people and to be able to be vulnerable with them and be open with them and to trust like their character, right? But there's a discernment to that too. I think we could say that. Yeah.
For sure.
That's what I understand about it. There's so much more. I have like pages and pages of it, and I like to check in semi-regularly about like, okay, what's going on in my charts? Although I haven't done that in a while, so I'd be curious what it has to say about me in this new role in my life as a mother. So that would be interesting.
Thinking of the archetypes for Capricorn, which are the hermit and the prime minister and the elder. Capricorn is so much about integrity, which I think you're someone with a lot of integrity. And I think what you described is in that exploration in your relationships, just kind of going into them with a lot of integrity. And that can take time to build. You can't always know someone's character right off the bat.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. And when you said the hermit, I'm like smiling because that has definitely come up for me. My ability to spend a large amount of time alone, recharging and just like really reveling in retreat. And sometimes how that could be, too much of a good thing, how that can sometimes pose, be a little bit more of a struggle when really what I need sometimes is to be in community. So being aware of that has been really big. Yeah.
And I think you just described perfectly. Every sign has its light side and its darker side. And I think one of the shadows of Capricorn basically can become like a little too much self isolation. And then how you deal with that, which is a journey unto itself.
Yeah.
I think too with Capricorn, which is something I really see in my knowing of you, is with that idea of integrity, sort of integrity and commitment in everything that one does to an extent. Capricorn is the 10th sign. And the deeper you get into the cycle, there's this sense of building and Capricorn has a lot to do with, I think, sort of great works over time. And it makes me think about how you are such a studious person, such a lifelong student, always reading and studying and
Mhm.
introspecting on something.
I just want to say I feel so seen by you, Sky, because you are not only do you know the language of astrology and the way you talk about it and communicate about it is so nuanced and so creative and so flavorful, but I you have a way of relating it about a specific person that's really solely uniquely about them, where you're really hitting on some of my stuff, right? All the ways in which it's great and which it kind of manifests, it's interwoven into my personality, and other ways in which it can be a challenge if it's in excess. So thank you for that.
Musing on Capricorn and that being a sign that
Yeah.
builds something over
Yeah.
time. And like, I think my experience of you really seeing you as someone who builds knowledge in such a deep way,
Yeah.
how that has
Yeah.
kind of played in your life and how that has
Mm.
occurred for you. You seem to me like someone who loves and has a passion for learning. And
Yeah.
you express your curiosity in really concrete ways. You really go for it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think you're picking up on something and it has many different facets. So many different facets. There's the more tangible stuff, if you will, um, which is like coming from a family of immigrants, being a 1.5 generation immigrant myself, and this emphasis on education, more
Oh,
along the lines of like formal education and formal learning that has been a major value my entire life and that I've absorbed as an adult in my own right. So there's that. We kind of know that story to some degree already, right? And think there's another piece of it that's oftentimes ignored, which is learning through informal experiences. And how
mhm.
does one even do that, right? Because it's kind of like seen as this passive thing. Like I have to wait for this thing to happen to me and then I kind of learn. And I think something that I do that I've become more aware of and I now start to intentionally do is seek new and novel experiences. Things that don't feel like me, I still am curious about talking to people about these things that they do and learning through them vicariously. Like,
Mhm.
oh, what is this thing that you're learning? And, how did you come to this? And kind of like interviewing people about their lives. And I had that energy about me ever since I was really young. But I still notice that today. I'm curious about the person who doesn't say as much or who's like sitting by themselves in the corner. And so there's that. But there's also if I have an inclination towards something, I definitely like it's a felt sense of let me explore that. What's that about? And so, in my younger years, there was a fair amount of dabbling of understanding what is this about? I needed to like expand my world at times. I was a very curious kid. Growing up, there weren't as many resources earlier on in my life. And so I found that sense of adventure and learning and having the world open up to me through books, right? And through games and through whatever kids are naturally have at their fingertips. And as I got older, it was like, oh, let me go beyond my comfort zone and the things that I think are my boundaries and try it for myself and put myself sometimes in uncomfortable situations, not like life threatening, not toxic by any means, but uncomfortable, like learning to ski in my 20s, for example, right? Which learning to do anything like that as an adult and being an adult learner is it like it's very jarring of an experience. And so there is something about me about like pushing the edges and I don't know, like allowing myself to be uncomfortable and getting comfortable with the uncomfortable as a way of growing. And, I've had to be really thoughtful of when and how I go about doing that because one can't live in discomfort at every twist and turn of life. But there is a thing in me where, like, if I'm getting too comfortable, I'm like, I got to break out of this. Like,
I need something.
yeah, I need something, or maybe even revisiting things that I used to do in the past or that I wanna excavate a little bit more. I wanna go deeper in because life is, I'm playing a new role in my life. And so how would having this perspective and bringing in this tool or this knowledge or this practice support me right now at this new stage in a way that's different than how it supported me 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
Hmm.
So it's sort of learning, but in a different way, right? Like kind of pushing oneself. But I think it's also okay to not push yourself. So there's like a little balance there.
Totally. Think something I'm hearing though for you is something that has worked. Well, one thing, I think it makes a lot of sense that you have wound up in the lines of work that you have wound up in because you have a deep curiosity about people.
A deep curiosity to go where a lot of people will.
Yes. And I think you are also able to hold that perspective in a way where you can put your own biases down
Mm.
to be able to hold space for what might be going on with people.
Yes. I mean, and I think that's a good way of saying it. Put my biases down. I think we have to recognize we're all biased creatures, right? There's certain amount of judgment that we need to have about any given situation, and to be aware of that. The key here is being aware of it so that you can put it to the side or put it down. I guess in my role as a therapist, I have a lot of practice, and through my formal education, it was very much a part of training to be a therapist, where you learn to acknowledge what are your own judgments and biases, and at the same time, cultivate a sense of compassion. Both those things have to happen at the same time. And the compassion is for yourself, first and foremost,
Mm.
connecting with your own humanity and imagining yourself in that client's position, right? Building empathy skills, really. And hopefully you're doing this outside of therapy training. Hopefully, like you have a way of like doing this in other aspects of your life because it goes a far way in connecting with people. And knowing how to be gentle with self, you can then show up for that person in that space. And as you said, put your biases down because you're cultivating something to replace it with. "Oh, I'm going to hold you in this space. Like, I'm going to hold myself in this space. We are being held together in this space, this sacredness that we're creating in being human in this moment." And there's something so powerful about that. There's something so deeply spiritual about that. And I think like that actually ties to your first question about learning. I think going places that not a lot of people want to go, or going places where let a lot of people know they have to go, but they can't go alone. And being the person that wants to go there with them and being the person that is stays in a place of curiosity and not judgment helps me learn and grow on a personal level, but also helps my clients learn and grow. And I guess I have cultivated that part of myself and parlayed it into work in the world that is very useful, right? And a necessary skill that we want to cultivate in the world.
I think you hit on something very powerful and beautiful here, which is that a big part of being able to hear other people out in anything and have understanding and compassion for them, or even have the capacity to try and understand, is about having compassion for yourself
Yeah.
and having compassion for whatever feelings you might have that come up in response to perhaps their feelings. Yeah. And that makes me think too about how what you were saying, putting yourself in a position to be uncomfortable so that you can grow, and how very Capricornian it is
Mhm.
that I think you're very good at doing that in structured ways. You find a structured funnel. You're like, I'm going to take this class. I'm going to learn this thing. I'm going to go study this now.
I'm going to make myself a guinea pig in that thing that I'm studying.
Which brings me to, I'm so curious to hear about this because I don't even really know what this is, but there's so much buzz about it. I know you're studying, is it EMDR right now or is it EDMR?
It's all of it. It's really all of it. So EMDR is what it's known by, and
And what
it stands
is
for,
that?
yeah, what is that? I know. Like it's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Yeah, I know. I'm actually getting really excited thinking about it and talking about it. So, where to start? I mean, literally, it uses eye movements. So, looking side to side, tracking a moving object side to side, but not only relies on eye movements. There's other movements side to side in a certain fashion that could replace the eye movements. So even though it's called eye movement, it's the first two letters, it's really bilateral movements or
So you can use
dual.
eye movement or you can use physical movement.
Yes. Yeah. So bilateral movements of tapping, it could be drumming. It's like there's a rhythm there, right?
So you're creating a rhythm, and then what do you do with that?
Yeah. So eye movement or bilateral movement desensitization, essentially like exposing you to it through talk therapy and through memories, right? Through managing the memories in your mind and walking through those memories, kind of like in Stranger Things when she's walking through the memories. It's kind of, yeah. I'm sure that could be a whole other conversation, but desensitizing you to the memory so it doesn't hold as much charge. So, and then there's a reprocessing element of that your brain naturally does to help you change your emotional relationship to that memory,
Mm.
right? It's not to forget the memory, it's to code it in a different color, flavor, understanding, beliefs, feelings, etc.
So, for example, let's take something random. You had a terrible bicycle accident when you were 5, and that has given you kind of a panic attack response to a lot of different things in your life. You could bring this memory up. You would
Mm-hmm.
do, I don't know exactly how this works, but the stimulation, the bilateral stimulation of sorts. And would you be talking through while that's happening what it would feel like to not feel panicked?
So, to some degree, yes, right? There's a lot of details about that. I'm not going to overwhelm you with the details, but there is a piece of it where if that's a memory that you want to focus on, you work with a therapist to surface a problematic belief that you have about that memory, a problematic belief you have about yourself in regards to that memory.
Mm.
So the fact that you panicked is not necessarily a problem. If you're 5 years old, that's what could happen if you're really scared. But being able to surface what was your problematic belief, what was part of the experience that added to this negative belief you had about yourself. So say if you fell off the bike and there was nobody around, right? It
Mm.
wasn't just that you fell off, there was nobody around, or maybe there was somebody around, but they laughed at you, or nobody helped you. They were like, "Oh, you're fine. Just brush off, your leg and you're not hurt. Stop crying." Maybe something like that happened, right? And then maybe you panicked. Maybe that was part of it. It's has lodged in you a certain belief maybe around defectiveness, around maybe some inability to control a situation, maybe a feeling of I'm alone. I'm alone in this struggle. There's nobody here with me. I'm not safe. A sense of distrust. I can't trust the people around me. Anyway, it could go on and on and on. And you work on those cognitions and you walk through that memory and you tap it out. You do the bilateral stimulation, and the therapist guides you in, like, okay, what's coming up now? What's coming up now? The therapist actually says very little. It's not like traditional talk therapy, although traditional talk therapy could be used to support EMDR before and after. Usually in the actual active treatment, it's like there's phases of it, phase 3 to 7. It's very, very little interaction between the therapist and the client, unless the client is coming up with a lot of really intense things that are preventing them from walking through the memory, right? Like
Mhm.
dissociation, for example, or
Mhm.
real difficulty, like physical difficulty being back in that memory, right? And so we'd have to do some other work to prepare them. And so a lot of different caveats to the whole process. But if you're able to go through the process, the idea is that the movements, and there's a whole biology to this that's not entirely understood, but the movements and the thinking of the thought, the replacement of that negative thought with something positive, helps reduce the level of distress you feel in your body. And you continue the process, and the checking in until you get to a 0 level of distress about the memory. Does that make
And
sense?
that totally makes sense. About
Yeah.
how long would you say people practice this for? Like, say you want to do some EMDR therapy. Is it type of therapy that you would go on an ongoing basis doing that? Do you use it kind of in a treatment setting? Like, oh, we're going to do this for 6 weeks or one time, or
Yeah.
what's
From
the
what
application like?
Yeah, how did it get applied? I mean, that's a great question. So I think different therapists may offer different things. I personally wouldn't offer EMDR to somebody like coming right off the street who are like, I want EMDR. I would need to get to know them and build a certain level of trust and rapport so that, they feel safe with me. So much of talking about trauma and being witnessed in the trauma is being able to have somebody else to hold this with you and to witness you in it
Mhm,
and feeling of safety with that person. And
mhm,
so that I would take some time to establish before we get into talking about the trauma, right? Because there's lots of other things about their lives that could be going great, and we want to resource the person, right? So there's a lot of prep work before the actual eye movement. And so much of resourcing is building one's coping skills, and that could be a wide variety of things. Certain mindfulness tools are really important. There's specific activities that are taught, and this is to help the person when they're not in session, when they're in their everyday life. If they get triggered, they can use one of these mindfulness tools to contain the memory, right? So we can get back to it at a time that's more appropriate. They can feel more control of the process. So they're not flooded or re-triggered at random times throughout their days, right? Their lives, their everyday lives. And so, this would be something that I offer in a very intentional fashion. Some people think of it as like, oh, 6 treatments or 12 treatments, or they put a number on it. And I would say it really depends on the memory, how entrenched it is, how much impact it's having on your life, all the different ways that you're re-triggered, and how your brain is processing it.
mhm,
Right. And so that can really vary. And I like to do this with a client and really check in to see how it's going, because it's not like you do some sessions of EMDR and then you're healed. It may bring up other things. So you may not be triggered about that specific memory, but there's something tangential to that that does get re-triggered in the process. And so you'd work on that. It has a lot of, evidence that that shows that it's very effective, very impactful. And so a lot of people are seeking it right now, and you definitely want to make sure that you're working with a trained clinician, um,
mhm.
because and it's also somebody that you trust that feel gets you, right. It can really help the process.
That's so interesting. Thanks for sharing that because so buzzy right now. What got you excited about that? To be one of those, is it the research behind it? Because
There's some of that for sure. I knew for the longest time, I think like since 2017, I was in a workshop with Bessel van der Kolk, and I was studying
ah,
to be a
cool.
therapist, and he had recommended, I was like, if there's one specific modality that you encourage therapists in training to seek, what would that be? And he said EMDR. And I had limited knowledge of it at that time, but it was introduced to me, and I had some sessions myself, and I felt like it was very powerful as a way of resourcing. There's aspects of the whole process that could be very useful. And so even if you don't go through all 8 phases, the resourcing, the being able to practice mindfulness skills to manage the memory, the intrusive thought around it, could be really helpful in and of its own. So
Mhm,
I really benefited from that. And then fast forward, I do a lot of work with clients around trauma. Trauma is always somehow at the root of so many things that people are struggling with regarding mood and inability to find joy, but not being able to place their fingers on what is it, what's going on. And so sometimes I have clients in treatment where we're able to make big headway into the day to day aspects of their lives. There's something that still is lingering. And so that's when I kind of whip out EMDR, and I can use that as a tool to support clients in going deeper. And we've already established
mhm.
that trust, so it's easier to go there. And so it's been like a natural, very organic way of introducing it into my practice. And there's so many aspects of it. So I'm getting, further training in this, but it could be used in so many different contexts, like humanitarian context after war and devastation on that level, with groups of people, across cultures, and even with small children, I'm learning. So it's
Mhm.
all been very eye opening.
This is because it's such a big topic. It's making me think of a question as we think about learning. And you could take this in any direction you want. Could be something recent or in the past. Is there like a moment, a book, a lesson of some sort that just kind of cracked your worldview open?
Wow, what a great question. Oh
Big
my god.
one. Any
No pressure.
big answer, small answer, but something that you were just like, "Whoa, what I thought before has changed from the."
I don't wanna think about it too much. I feel like there's been so many books. So I guess in the realm of books or life experiences, I think it was doing a teacher training when I was, gosh, how old was I? Somewhere in my early mid-20s at Kripalu. And I mean, wow, there was lots of texts that we read and a lot of practices. And I just feel like it was a deep somatic learning and unraveling that was significantly therapeutic, very healing. Really felt like I could put certain things down. I didn't have to carry them anymore in my body. It brought me a lot of relief, really. And it I feel like on some level it matured me emotionally and it added to my knowledge and my language, my ability to communicate with my body in a way that I wasn't communicating with my body until that moment. And so there's a lot more to say about that. But, for brevity's sake, like just to answer your question, like I think it would be that experience overall.
What kinda training was that?
That was a yoga teacher training. It was at Kripalu, and it was so intensive, and it was real therapy, and I highly encourage anybody and everybody to do a yoga teacher training, honestly, in this day and age, more so now.
Agreed.
Yeah, yeah um, to get deep awareness of self and to also be in community with other people, learning how to hold space for others as they are going through their own personal, intense, painful journeys, and how to allow them to hold space for you without necessarily talking about lots of things in depth, in detail,
Mm,
but tending to one another through yoga as therapy, right?
mhm, and kind of living that yoga.
Yeah.
It's what you just said about how sometimes you don't even need to talk. It doesn't have to be words. There can be just ways of being that do so much in life and in relationships. As someone who is, I think you are in so many ways relational in a deep way. If you could give your younger self a piece of advice about relationships, what do you think it would be?
These questions are blowing me away. Okay. One thing's coming to my mind, and this is not just advice for my younger self. I think this would be advice for me just throughout my life is even now to this day is just allow people to show up for you. If they want to show up for you and they're telling you that, allow it. Receive, practice receiving, and don't get in your own way and prevent yourself from getting the love that you desire and that you deserve.
That's a big one.
And I'm still learning that.
That sort of thing can be so easy to shut down the second the possibility even crops up. Do you have any thoughts on how one could be
Mm,
open to
yes.
allowing more of that into their life? Because it can be so, I think, we don't even realize we're doing it sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the first thing that comes to mind, at least like I know in my practice, is to welcome joy and cultivate joy with other people. Now,
Mm,
that may be an easy lesson for another person to learn, right? Maybe in good times, they're able to have community and connect. It's in the difficult times that they don't want people to see them. I can relate to that as well. But this is a part of like resourcing. Like, in order for people to be there for you in hard times, you want to be able to also allow them in really good moments to celebrate you. I know for me, it's always easy to celebrate someone else, and it's so hard to celebrate myself or to let others celebrate me. And so for me, that has been the practice. So grin and bear it. No, but just like, it's a practice. It's a practice of like, okay, let it be uncomfortable. Let this person bake you a cake for your birthday and invite people and like sing to you even as you squirm and cultivate pauses and silences and not feel the need to show up in the way that you always expect of yourself, right? So listening to what your body's asking for and I'll give yourself permission to be there. If you're feeling sick, if you're feeling upset or sad or angry, just be in it. You don't even have to talk about it with anybody. You don't, it doesn't have to be that obvious. Just like allow yourself to just be in it. And not mask it. And that is provides an opportunity for people to attune with the real you and to show up. And like I said, like it's a practice, right? It's not that's not easy. And so when you find those people though, like you treat them really well. They're your people. Yeah.
I think a couple things, like points I'm hearing from you here are one, letting there be space, maybe not feeling like you need to rush to fill the space,
Mm,
just letting there be a little space to be quiet, to pause, so that you can even get the awareness of how are
mhm.
you feeling right now? Are you uncomfortable? And see what happens and let someone be in there with you while
Oh
that's
yeah.
happening before you go "Da-da-da-da-da," so you can kinda low key run away. So,
Yeah,
like
because it can be really uncomfortable. And like, can we be with ourselves in the discomfort? And if we can, then, maybe that's an invitation to like for other people to just be there with you,
mhm.
and you also know who those people are, right? Like, you don't want to be banging down the doors of people who don't want to be there with you.
But if someone is banging down your door, sometimes it might be someone that we don't really know that well yet, but we're like,
Right. I feel like I'm being called out here.
not intentionally, but when me and Farah first met, I was, like, basically immediately like, "Oh, we will be best friends forever," and she didn't realize that right away. Not that she didn't wanna be my friend, but,
Yeah.
I was very quickly I was like, "Yes, of course."
And I was being my like,
You were being coy.
discerning, suspicious.
But another thing I picked up on from you here is you said something really good, I think, about joy. Maybe the practice of cultivating awareness of what brings us joy and what actually feels really good both when we're feeling good and when we're not so feeling good, like what makes us feel safe, what makes us feel at peace, so that we have that awareness to maybe let people into that because people might want to do that with us. But we have to have the little bit of the skill and the awareness to sometimes be able to let them know what that is. Like what you were saying about the birthday party, like inviting people to the birthday party because if you don't, they might not know that you want them there.
Right, right. They don't know to show up, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, and
Mm,
you're not giving yourself an opportunity to be loved, and you're not giving them the opportunity to show up, to be there for you, to play this role, right?
mhm.
And I mean, this goes back to like we are relational creatures, like we need each other, right? Like
Mhm.
science points to that. Like, we live in this world that's like so buzzing about AI and all these technological advances, and it's really beautiful and could be a whole new frontier. We're in it. It's here. And it can open up so many opportunities that didn't exist before for connection and understanding and like efficiency and da, 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 da. And we have to realize we are the humans creating these things. And so let's be sensitive to each other as humans and, have
Mhm.
mechanisms so that we're not taking out a very human component and we're not trying to create, something human out of something that's not human. We can tell the difference, right? That's my soapbox about AI, even though you didn't ask me about that.
Well, speaking of AI, as we walk through this moment where there's so much change afoot and so many opportunities for learning, what do you think has been your biggest teacher lately? Like, what has been
Mm,
teaching you the most on
yeah.
your journey of life?
Yeah, great question. I mean, so I've had lots of teachers throughout my life, intentionally and unintentionally. And my gosh. So the first thing that came to mind is my 18-month-old son. I mean, who embodies life in and of itself, like the most feral creature, very like here with his emotions. And in a split second, here with his emotions. And it's just, wow, a beautiful rendering of life itself. And then sometimes it goes back to my early days and the people that raised me who are still very much a part of my life. But it goes back to those memories too. But I think very present and very real and very immediate would be my toddler. Being able to see life through his eyes, like literally, I feel like my brain and my perspective is from the point of view of like a toddler with a GoPro, you know? Like, and I'm piecing it together. It's not just what he sees, it's like what he's experiencing, what he hears, and how quickly he picks up on that. It's so children just have this ability to, they know things with their whole selves. They may forget it later on, but it's there. They're taking it in. Always when you think he didn't hear something, or um, you're just going about your everyday life, and there's maybe you're having like an argument with your partner, and it's, after a while you're like, oh, there's another little person in the room, and you turn around, he's just standing there like staring at you like, what's going on? He's using all his senses. And sometimes when I get caught up in my day and I'm not using all my senses, it's such a juxtaposition to him and just how he approaches the world. And so it's always so revelatory, and also very inspiring, and so keen with perspective, that I just love getting down on his level and just playing very quietly with him and watching him and relating to him. And it's almost like time slows down, and I'm looking through a microscope, and I'm seeing things that I never saw before. And I mean, I get it when it sounds so trite, but I've heard parents say, he's my biggest teacher, but he really is. And it brings me back to this ancient part of myself, or even just like my inner child. But it also brings me back to the present. It's like all this time has been collapsed into this creature, into this moment I'm sharing with him. And it's just like, wow. It's the galaxy. A child can like represent like the galaxy, and just like so much like, woo.
I feel like that makes so much sense because there are certain, first of all, time in general, right? It's very weird in life how sometimes time feels like it slows down and sometimes it feels like it speeds up. And these certain experiences in our own lives that make it this whole other relationship with time, which it sounds like is happening with your baby, of it just totally is like warping time. And makes me think about the journey we're all on here together. And does time even exist? Like, is this happening now and 10 years ago and 10 years from now, and all unfolding alongside each other? And the kind of presence bringing that it sounds like this is bringing to your life, with just his pureness and his aliveness and curiosity and your connection and the intimacy of that, what that does, which we're going to have a whole nother episode on love, partnership, parenthood, because you have so many poignant insights to share there, I think.
That's so sweet. I feel like I don't think I would have as many poignant insights if, I didn't have all these experiences, which were not just of my own doing, but, so many people have helped me, you know, have those experiences and get to this place. But also in talking to you, I feel like it comes out even more, right? These are some things that I don't always think about on a daily basis. So I really appreciate you doing this and giving the space, the platform to talk about these really important things. And hopefully, it gets your viewers to think about their lives and kind of re-examine. So yeah, very
That's what
cool.
we're going for, aliveness.
Yeah, I love it. I love this. I mean, one thing that I did think about that we could say for another time is, even in this beautiful experience with this small child, there's a lot of icky that comes up, right? And ways in which I can get triggered. And it brings me back, talking about time collapsing. It does bring me back to this earlier time where literally in my body, I feel like this 4-year-old girl, right? And that can be hard. I can watch myself have this whole experience, relive this experience of pain and struggle and whatever was going on at that time. And so it doesn't have anything to do directly with him, but that's what a trigger is, right? It's resurfacing some stuff. And so who am I? Am I the mother? Yeah. And am I the child? Yeah. And I'm all of it, right? And I have to be so thoughtful about who I'm carrying at any one time, at any given time. So there's that.
I think that's to say, because I'm about to ask you, one thing you want to leave people with as we wrap up, and it sounds like one is just holding it's this and this and this and this is one thing I'm hearing from this. We're going to have to do an episode of like Motherhood, the time warp. But if there's one thing you wanted to leave people with, anything of your choosing, anything on your mind.
Yeah. I think there's this concept that's emerging for me in the course of this conversation, which is accepting yourself and allowing yourself and look at yourself, view yourself as being a complex creature that, as Walt Whitman says, we contain multitudes. And so this sense of like, I am this, yes, and I'm that, and I am at this stage, but I'm still in this stage. And, I can allow myself, I can accept myself for being all of it. And then with that, I can make a choice. I don't have to cut out this part of me. I don't have to get rid of that. I don't have to hide behind anything, right? And and in doing that, I mean, it breeds more, I think, self-acceptance, and a feeling of like evidence about who you are in the world. You're a lot of things, and we're all like walking hypocrisies, right? Because life is complicated. Human life is complicated, and the world around us is just getting more increasingly complex. And so, how we show up to that, we have to show up to that with the multitude of parts of ourselves, but being aware of who's running the show would be important.
Is such a beautiful closing, and thank you for such a good summing up of the richness of it all. Like, that really lights me up to be like, let's sit back and think about all of these multitudes of really what is the odyssey of our own personal lives, and then where we sit in a space of choice within that. And being okay with not being able to control it all and choosing to what extent we can,
Yeah.
and kind of doing alchemy on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think going back to like all those different parts and versions of ourselves, like celebrating all those people that you are, that you once were, that you will be, whatever, right? The lines blur, and recognizing that they're there for a reason. They're there for a reason. They have served you well for a reason. But yeah, the odyssey, the adventure, the stories of all those people. Yeah. Yeah. And then being able to like, how does that make you feel? Wow, so expansive. And now I get to choose. I get to choose. Right.
Think this weekend we all need to throw ourselves a little party. We're choosing, however that looks, in celebration of just all that is, and the adventure and the mystery. And the tone of the party could be, whatever you want.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I think I needed to end on that note today.
Me too. And Farah, if people were to want to connect with you, is there any way that they could find you, or a medium that you like to share on? And we can put this in the
Yeah,
show notes.
sure. So you can find me on my website at www.farahdelicia.com. And I have a series of writings that I do. Maybe that might be inspiring, or relatable, or much needed in this time in your life.
Definitely. Would love to
Yeah.
read the writings.
Yeah. And yeah, other than that, you can, find my email. You can always reach out. I love having really great conversations with folks on a wide range of issues. So yeah, don't
Oh,
hesitate to look me up.
thank you so much. This has been such a great conversation, as always, with you.
Yay. Thank you, Sky. I love you so much.
I love you so much.
I'm so grateful for you in my life and in the world. And yeah, I'm excited for this venture.
I truly am so grateful for you, my dear. Thank you so much for listening to Venus and Gemini. If this episode resonated, it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe, or leave a review, or share it with someone you love. Until then, see you guys next time.